Hello everyone. Today, figure we change it up a little bit. We'll do some work in the shop today. I've had some questions about what I do for work. I am an aircraft mechanic. The shop I work for, we do scheduled, unscheduled maintenance, inspections, and on top of all that, we do a lot of heavier modifications. So it's not uncommon for us to get brand new planes in and have to modify them. Right now I am working on a King Air 360, and the owner wants a new type of cargo net in the back, and with that we need to build a few new brackets for the footman loops, which is just where the cargo net connects onto. So basically what we're going to be building is bracket just very similar to this, a couple simple bends, and then a couple notches to be able to fit inside of the frames. And then we'll drill some holes to get the footman loops. But today, figured I'd just show you guys how to use the brake, how to measure your bends with your bend allowances, setbacks, and how to cut your metal on a sheet metal shear. So with that, we'll get into it pretty quick here. We'll go ahead and do our calculations. I kind of pre-did it already, get my thoughts organized here, so hopefully I can get through this without being too confusing. So basically I started by drawing our basic rectangle here, and then drawing in our bends here. So just between this mark and these marks are our bends. So a couple important things we need to know is our setback and our bend allowances. So our bend allowance is how much material is actually used in the bend. So when we're going to cut our overall piece, we know exactly how much material we need, and we don't have to go back, grind it off, sand it off, or cut it off, and it wastes less material. So bend allowance, I've got this fancy chart here, and basically it just goes down your metal thickness and then your radius of your bend. So we're using 40 thousandths metal and a 1/8 inch radius. So our bend allowance is going to be 0.224. So I went ahead and just wrote in 0.224 here. So that way we have it. Next thing we need to know is we need to figure out what our lengths are actually going to be when we take our setback away. And setback is your bend radius plus your material thickness. You need to take that away from your overall lengths here. So our setback is going to be bend radius plus material thickness. So your bend radius is 1/8 inch or 0.125 plus 40 thousandths, because that's the material thickness that we're using, which brings our setback to 0.165. So now that we know that, we can go ahead and calculate what our ends need to be. So overall, we want a 0.75 inch length here. So 0.75 minus 0.165 gives us 0.585. We go ahead and write that up here as well. I'll write it down here since I didn't before. Since those are same lengths, we both want those at a 3/4 inch. We go ahead and write that in. And then next is our 4-inch length that we want on here, which is going to be our, should be on the outside of this bend all the way to the outside of this bend. And since you have 2 bends on this flat, we need to take our setback away twice. So 4 inches minus 0.165 minus 0.165 gives us 3.67 inches. So that's where our marks are going to be. So then on the very right hand side, what I like to do is I like to kind of write out what my measurements are going to be here. So if this is our bottom of this piece is our 0 mark on our ruler, we're going to start with 0 there. We're going to add our 0.585. That's where our first mark's going to be. Next, we can add our bend allowance to give us 0.809. Next, we can add our big flat in and that'll put us up to our next bend. So after we add our big bend in, we can go ahead and add our next bend allowance in, 0.224, put us up to 4.7, and then add our last flat piece in, put us up to 5.29 or 5.3 would be close enough. So those will be our overall dimensions, which will be 11 inches by 5.3 inches. So then we can go to our material that we're cutting here, and the video cut off, so I actually have to remake this, but I've got everything marked out now. So basically just measured from one end to one end because we want 11 inches. So then you can see here I've got a line on the bottom side here, cut line, and then our overall length we want to be from here up 5.3 inches. So you can see I've got my cut line across the top here. After that, I went ahead and took all of our measurements on this side and transferred them to our sheet again. So just used this as my 0 reference, and then went up with it. So 0.585 inches on the bottom, then 0.809 inches, and then we've got our long flat here. I don't know how well you can see this on the camera. And then our next bend, and then our cut line, obviously. So, and nice thing about aluminum is it does have a plastic covering over it when it comes from the factory, so I can peel this off and I don't need to worry about leaving Sharpie marks on this. So, and don't be scared to label these. So our cut lines and then our bend lines. One thing we didn't talk about is our sight line. So your sight line is going to be right where your brake sits onto your sheet metal, and that's called our sight line. So you can see I have this mark kind of right in the center of our bend lines. So there's a calculation for this, but for this small of a bend, it's so minuscule, it really doesn't matter. So I usually just eyeball kind of halfway between our bend allowances. So with that, we'll go ahead and go over to the sheet metal shear. So this is the shear. This is a 4-foot shear with foot press. They're pretty easy to use. This is a fairly new one, so it's quite easy to use, and it's pretty sharp. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our cut line it right up with the edge, because then this whole piece will go down, and it's pretty sharp under there. So don't pinch any fingers. And next thing you want to watch for is when you push this down, don't leave your other foot up under there, because you will smash it. So just be careful. Again, we're going to make sure our lines are cut up, then we're just going to give it a good stomp. And just like that, we got a nice cut. We'll go ahead and cut our last end over. Line it up. Give it a good stomp. Just like that. Now all we got to go do is put it in the brake and bend these two pieces up. So this is a sheet metal brake. Got 1/8 inch radius pieces on here. I'm going to put one side down. So with your sight line, as you look down on it, you want to try to get those sight lines lined up with where your brake is going to sit down at. So these handles on the side will clamp it down. Check again, we're lined up. And bend it to a 90. This one's a little off, so we're going to bend it right about there. Hang it up. We're going to check. It's pretty close to a 90. It'll be close enough for what we're doing. So next we're going to flip it over and do our next bend. Line it up with our sight line again. Clamp it down. Lined up, bring it up. And just like that, we've got 2 bends in there. So after we get it bent, we can bring it back and we can double check our measurements. So we wanted our top side to be 4 inches from outside to outside, which is perfect right there. And then our flat edges, or bent edges, we wanted at 0.75, which is perfect. So there's that. Now you know how to use a shear and a brake to be able to bend sheet metal. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you learned something. If you have any recommendations for me, go and leave them down in the comments and I'll get you answered. So thanks for watching.